Uh, I think we're live. Thank you so much. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are around the globe. My name is Dr. Ayak Choldeng Alak, and I will be your moderator for the day. Welcome to this important discussion. Today, we will be discussing the role of youth in peace building. Thank you all for joining us. In South Sudan, the importance of focusing on youth is because they represent the majority of the population. 70% of the population are young people. Furthermore, South Sudanese youth have low educational attainment, inconsistent economic participation, and are also affected by the widespread violence that has existed for a number of years in different regions of the country. Youth participation in political and democratic process is a major challenge. Youth or young people are systematically excluded from decision making based on their young age and inexperience, with politics regarded as a space for the mature and experienced persons. Limited democratic space has seen young people engage in hate speech to vent their frustrations, with incitement to conflict and violence being common. Addressing the unique needs of the youth should be given priority in this country to avoid the group being marginalized and potentially resorting to violent forms of political articulation of their demands. There is an urgent need to build on government recognition that youth are a special group that needs attention and resources committed to their causes and concerns. So far, there have been very few resources committed to the realization of this goal. Political will on the part of government needs to be backed up by concrete action. Before we start our discussion, I would like to briefly introduce to you our great panelists. First and foremost, I'll introduce Honorable Paulina Lokudu. He is a graduate of political science, a member of the defunct National Dialogue, and Minister of Information and Communication, Central Equatoria State, although currently inactive. Secondly, I'll introduce Mr. Manasseh Matiang. He is a creative, courageous young activist who is dedicated to advocating for peace and justice in South Sudan and Africa and the world as a whole. He is the co-founder of Anataban, which stands for I Am Tired, a youth movement made up of a community of thousands of young South Sudanese creatives who are using art as a platform to address issues affecting their country. Manasseh has been the initiative coordinator since the inception of this youth movement and stepped down in April, stating the need to create space for younger people to take up his space as he surpassed the youth age. Third, I'm introducing Mr. Wani Michael. He's the executive director of OK Africa Foundation, a youth representative to the National Constitution Amendment Committee, and which is one of the mechanisms established out of the peace process. He is also a member of the South Sudan Civil Society Forum and member of the South Sudan Youth Organizations and Coalitions. Mr. Wani is passionate about youth issues, democracy, and good governance. Most importantly, a staunch defender of the Constitution and the rule of law. I also introduced the advocate Rach Malwal. He has a bachelor's of law and a master's of law from the University of Juba. He is the managing partner of Ancestral Advocates, chairperson. He's also the chairperson of the Coalition of Public Interest Litigants in South Sudan, an executive director at a Screen of Rights media consultant, and Generation Change Fellow at the U.S. Institute of Peace. I introduce to you Mr. Patrick Godi, a writer, activist, and arts curator. He works extensively in peace advocacy, conflict resolution, and countering violent extremism, with special interest in youth mentorship, participation in policy development, and decision-making to cause positive change in society. His love for community has inspired him to work closely with civil society and grassroots initiatives to serve them both through advocacy and development interventions to make a positive difference, which is transforming and sustainable. His work in youth peace, and security has seen him become parts of initiatives including the African Youth Networks Movement, uh, which is a Pan-African network under Gracia Machel. He also is he was also selected to become a member of the Common Future Conversations, a new initiative developed by Chatham House. He is currently a leader in the South Sudan youth movement, Anataban, where they continue to advocate for peace and violent action in addressing the country's political, social, and economic challenges. Our final panelist, Feel Free, is a comedian, and unfortunately, he has not joined us today on this panel. However, I hope he's able to join us if possible, or probably through phone later on in the conversation. So, welcome everybody to this special edition, which has an all-male panelist and one female moderator. What we're going to do is we're going to kick off right away with the first question, and it goes to Honorable Paulino. Your question is, the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. What comes to your mind when you hear such words? What is the likely impact of these words on the youth of South Sudan? And what message can you tell the older generation who believe that youth will take their rightful space once the older generation retires? You're welcome. Uh, please unmute your device.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Ayak, and all the panelists in this program, in particular, this special program. Indeed, there is a narrative of saying youth are the leaders of tomorrow, in which, in one way or another, it seems like some people are against some generation, or some other people, individuals, are against youth coming up in political sphere of life. And this statement, first of all, it is unrecognizing the efforts of the young people. Two, it is negatively impacting on the social, political, and economic life of the young people. And three, the statement is divisive in terms of the engaging young people in decision making. I always disagree when I get a statement like youth are the leaders of tomorrow, because this tomorrow is being stealing from us. And this tomorrow is far away from us. The tomorrow is out of today, of course. The people who are doing something for today, they prepared us for tomorrow. But when you look at the kind of a tomorrow they are referring us to, the tomorrow is nowhere. The tomorrow that we've been hearing of, the tomorrow that they want us to participate in, that tomorrow is not there. That tomorrow starts from today. The tomorrow that they want us to engage in is a tomorrow that we will fight hardly to be stable and independent politically, economically, socially, and even to allow us to not only to participate but to compete in a global arena today. And that requires a formidable political process. That requires young people will be in the table of decision making today, so that the tomorrow will be ours, for us to own tomorrow, engage today.
Thank you so much, Honorable Paulino. I think that's the message is very clear. This tomorrow seems to not come, so youth need to be engaged at the moment. Thank you very much for that. Manasseh, the question goes to you. Do you agree that the youth of South Sudan are Tabanin? You are, after all, a co-founder of Anataban Youth Movement. And is this one of the reasons why the movement was formed? And really, what attributions could what could be attributed as successes of Anataban in South Sudan? The floor is yours. All right, so I think Manasseh is experiencing some technical glitches. So we'll move on to Awani Michael and then come back when he comes back online. Mr. Wani, following on the thread of Honorable Paulino, and you having worked in non-governmental sector in civil society, you have been recently extremely vocal about the recruitment processes. Do you think there is fairness in recruitment? If yes and no, could you tell us why? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayak, and thanks to the panelists. First of all, I want to say that uh, employment of young people is not the responsibility of the non-governmental organization to employ young people. It is the sole responsibility of the government to provide employment opportunities for young people. I've never heard of any country in the world that put their interest, their best interest in the NGO to employ young people. Because even the NGO world, these are donor money, so it's donor driven NGO world. So you cannot put your labor force on the NGO world. Recruitment in the NGO world, yes, there have been challenges in terms of there are some cases of unfairness, but also let us give credit where it is due. I have gone to the Ministry of Labor. They have at the national level, they have a board, a bill board there. And I have seen many times NGOs advertise their jobs there. I have never seen government advertise their jobs. And I have seen NGOs making it competitive. People apply for it and people compete for those jobs. I have never seen young people compete for jobs in Nilpet. I've never seen young people compete for any other jobs within the government. And you hear government continuing to recruit people. You don't know how they're recruiting people. So the issue of transparency, and by the way, the law requires that the government is a regulator. So if the government is not doing its functions as required by the law to regulate these NGOs, and then they ought to do their work. So for me, my stand has been that yes, young people has a genuine concern, but I don't think it is in order to attack NGOs. Where we heard of reports that some of these NGOs compounds were intruded and there was violence. There are some people who are beaten. We don't need to entertain violence. The only thing that we have to fight for is that we want to hold our government accountable. Government has to open up a private sector. I'm a very big advocate of increasing energy in South Sudan. I'm a big advocate of Fuladam because I know if we have Fuladam, we are going to industrialize South Sudan and we're going to create many opportunities. By the way, Ayak, let me give an example. Before SSBL was closed down, how many young people have been employed by SSBL? I know of so many people who are employed in production, in sales, and all these things. So the fairness, of course, there is that element of fairness. There's also that element of the NGO not exercising fairness, and that does not call for violence. That means it needs the government to take it up with these NGOs and be able to resolve these issues. But I want to tell young people is that it's not absolutely responsibility of the NGOs to employ you. It's the responsibility of your government to create a conducive environment for you to be able to create that employment. And for me, if we want to employ thousands and millions of young people, we need to improve our security. We need to improve the stability in the country so that we create many opportunities in the private sector. Lastly, is that I was hoping other young people will ask government, where is the youth fund? We are pumping oil every day. We are pumping oil. Where is that oil money that we can be invest in the young people to create more opportunities for them in the private sector? So these are the fundamental questions that we should be asking the government. So for me as Wani, I don't ask the NGOs to give me medicine. I don't ask NGOs to give me education. I don't ask NGOs to give me jobs because it's not the responsibility. I have a government that has a sovereign responsibility to be able to provide me with all those necessary things that I need because I pay tax. I'm a taxpayer. I pay tax every month, so I needed my government to be able to really provide it. So yes, there is unfairness in the NGO recruitment process. There is also fairness, but for me, the bigger blame goes to the government because they are the one giving license to these people. They are the one to do their work.
Thank you very much, Wani. That was very, very clear. Youth need to adopt nonviolent means to address issues that they find contentious, especially unemployment, the issues of employment with the NGO and INGO sector. Particularly, the emphasis is on government and para-government institutions to also show transparency in their recruitment of employees, and open up of the private sector as well, with security as one of the fundamental issues needed to be addressed to open up the employment space. Thank you very, very much for that elaborate explanation. I will move on to advocate reach. A legal angle is very much needed here. First of all, there is a huge contention about what the age of youth is in South Sudan. What is the legal age? What does the transitional constitution say about that? Does the youth have right to participate in the affairs of South Sudan? Many a times you hear, oh, no, 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 you're not allowed. You know, you cannot talk politics. This is dangerous. So let's have a legal angle to all this. You're welcome. Please unmute your mic.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I did. I believe you guys can hear me now. You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Do
you
you
loud
hear
and clear.
me? Okay. Okay. Literally, laws in the Republic of South Sudan are very vast. They are not made in a way that citizens can understand them. You can be able to analyze it legally and then come out with something that can be able to get into the minds of the people. Literally, Article 40 of the Transitional Government of National, I mean of South Sudan, 2011, as amended, is talking about youth in a general view, that all government institutions must be adopting policies and provide facilities for the welfare of youth. But then it does not define really whether youth are those young people energetic enough to serve in the Republic of South Sudan. So the Constitution look at youth as people that will need facilities of sports, people of service, but people who need service. If we go also forward, there is no direct age legally provided for. For example, you can be able to go to the Child Act. The Child Act will define a child as somebody from, age of 0 maybe to age of 17. And that means if you become 18, that is the age of majority. But then if you go to the SPLM Constitution and Manifesto, they define is in the law, national legal framework. But we have also seen that the National Youth Union has come up in its constitution and put it very clearly that the age of youth is between 18 and 35. But still, that is not working in the states. Where I come from, there are people who are above the age of 35 to 45 or to even 50. They still call themselves the youth. And this also brings a question whether the fear of not being heard is the one that is in subordinating the youth. For example, you can grow beyond the age of 35 and you still want to be youth simply because you are afraid. When you think that you are a big man or you are an old man at the age of 36, nobody is going to listen to you when you want to join as a person of that particular age. So we've been made, our intellectual capacity has been driven in a very ancient way to think that a young person does not know much more than the older person. And if the older person is on the podium, and then all that he or she says works. There are people who are very learned and they cannot speak in their communities. They cannot say anything that can help. Though we all know that at some point our old people become selfish when they are aging, and they don't understand that. And South Sudanese as well do not understand. When you grow older, you become more selfish. And that is where the problem is.
Thank you so much, Advocate Reed, for that, for the legal aspect of that. Yes, I realize there's been a lot of contentions about the issue of age. Thank you for highlighting that. Thank you for highlighting another issue, which is, are people afraid to step out of youth spaces because the middle age space is a category maybe that does not exist? That is something worth asking. Are people too afraid to join the elders space because the elders will marginalize them as well in those spaces, and the youth space is the only space that they get audience? Thank you so much for highlighting us and giving us more food for thought. I will move on to Mr. Patrick Godi. It's very good to see you. Uh, just following along those lines, Advocate Reach was talking about youth being looked at as an element that needs to be provided for and given sports facilities, and not necessarily capable of decision. So why should we include the South Sudanese youth in decision making? Since the youth are the leaders of tomorrow, as they say, do you think the youth should take their rightful space tomorrow and not today? You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Ayag, for having us on this show today. And also special thanks to the South Sudan Women Intellectuals Forum for having us today. I would like to pick up from where Advocate Rich has actually talked upon. Dr. Ayag, I would like to say the current narrative, which is being driven that young people should be excluded from places of governance, from political life, is actually a distortion and a disruption to how society was structured. Young people since time immemorial have been part and parcel of influencing, nurturing, and shaping the affairs of their communities. Today, young people have been neglected, and I can say that this is during the period of modern state building for the case of Africa. How the world is going to be shaped tomorrow and in the near future is dependent upon how the now generation is engaged. The decisions which are being made today have greater ramifications for tomorrow. And therefore, I feel young people need to stand out. Young people need to come to the front and actually fight for their rights, because the consequences of the decisions which are being made right now by these elders are going to be felt largely by us. Therefore, we should not sit behind as young people, but rather we need to continue pushing forward to see that we are recognized and we're at the table where the decisions are being made. I'd like to draw your attention to our case in South Sudan. The grand promises of the liberation struggle have largely not been achieved. One, because of the systematic exclusion of young people. And therefore, if we are going to make gains as premised by the current peace agreement, I think it's going to be important to engage young people. And the permanent constitution making process, which is, of course, one of the processes that is a result of the peace agreement, is an important avenue where the young people should look forward to their participation. I hope that within this framework, young people can take a central role in the reorganization of the state, to see that their rights are guaranteed in the constitution, to see that this systematic exclusion of them from governance is put to an end. And I would like to recommend that actually in this process, young people ought to come out and advocate to see that barriers that have been hindering their participation are removed. One of the things that I want to bring out or to highlight is the issue of age. when it comes to young people entering into political spheres, you find that there are barriers. One of that is the issue of age. Currently in South Sudan, for example, a young person who's under the age of 40 years cannot be a governor. For you to become a president, you must be above the age of 45. What I'm saying and what I'm calling out my fellow young people to do is that during the permanent constitution making process, these barriers need to be removed. For as long as someone is above the age of 18, I feel they are maturely developed and they're able to participate in the affairs of their community. Therefore, young people cannot be leaders of tomorrow. Young people need to co-lead right now with our elders to see that we address the challenges that are facing us. And I would like to also highlight the policy which our government actually pursued since 2005, where young people were not given opportunities. What we have seen is that it has largely been catastrophic to the point that we ended up in a brutal civil war where millions of lives were lost. The future of young people was disrupted. Even at the current state, we do not know the fact that we have spent more than 7 years in conflict. Young people have not been going to schools. So what kind of life are these people going to face? Whose education, who have been deprived of the education? When you come to Juba, you find that there are lack of employment opportunities. And this comes to what Wani Michael was actually talking about. Young people have resorted to violence to see that they get some of the few jobs which are available offered by the non-governmental organizations. And it is spreading like wildfire in all corners of the country. Therefore, young people, they need to come out and strongly ensure that in this new political dispensation that is coming at the end of the transitional period, barriers that have been hindering them from fulfilling their potential in life are removed, and also for the government to recognize youth agency, to see young people as agents of positive change in the country. I know we have national development plans. All of this cannot be achieved without putting young people at the core of it. And young people have demonstrated their abilities. Young people, through science, through the arts, through technology, they have shown their skills and how they can improve the lives and well-being of humanity. Therefore, there is no grounds at all for young people to be excluded. And therefore, I make a direct call to the government to begin recognizing young people in South Sudan. They're playing an important role, and therefore, they should be given a conducive environment to pursue their life, to bring the change that they desire to see in their communities.
Thank you so much, Patrick Godi. You have clearly stated violence. The current violence is aftermath of a scramble over the meager resources that are available for the youth in South Sudan. Thank you so much for highlighting the need for youth to take up ownership and actively participate, especially in the upcoming constitutional making process. There is need for the youth of South Sudan to catch up, and South Sudan as a country to catch up with the rest of the world as youth are taking over in leadership and governance. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I would be very much interested to see how you engage in the constitution making process. Now, just following on that thread, Honorable Paulino, there's youth leadership in the economic spheres, in sports, in other spheres, but there is always this question of what are youth in political spaces doing? So my question to you is, why is political participation important for the youth of South Sudan? Why do you think that most youth are scared to participate in politics? And what can be done to attract youth in this venture? And what message do you have out there? Because for you, you are one of the people that you see as a role model in a political space. The floor is yours. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. When we speak of the political participation, it's in interrelated. It's linked with something called political culture. And worldwide, there is 3 recognized types of the political culture. One is partial political culture, subject political culture. And these types of the political cultures is what can mirror. We see ourselves through them. And in partial political culture, this is a type of a society that knows nothing about the government, that knows nothing about who is the minister, who is the governor, who is whoever in the government. This type of a society exists especially in our remote areas. People don't know who are the government officials, what are the ministries, and what are the responsibilities of these ministries. In the grassroots, mostly it exists, but in national level, somehow it differs. Then when you come to a subject political culture, a subject political culture is a political culture whereby citizens are aware of the presence of the government and the institutions of the government, but they don't participate in the decision making of the policies of the government. They believe that government is government. Whatever the government did, wrong, right, we are subjected to the policies of the government. And this is a mixed type of a culture we have, especially in the cities, especially here in Juba, which is the capital city. We have this type of a culture whereby some people believe that when the government says something, that is over. As a citizen, you don't need to argue on the decisions of the government, whether levy taxes, whether any type of the political participation. You don't need to have influence in decisions, in the policies of the government. This is the second type of a political culture which heavily affecting the political participation of the young people, especially the youth in the political decisions in the country. The third political culture is participatory political culture. And also, this participatory political culture, you can see it almost everywhere. It depends on the nature of how people participate in politics. In Juba, in particular, which is the capital city, and the other cities in South Sudan, you will see some people participate in politics, but how do they participate in politics? Example, currently there is ongoing constitutional making process at the national level. And soon, Central Equatoria have started the constitutional amendment process. And it will move on to other states. These are the types of the political process that people participate in. And not all, but depends on who got the opportunity to do that. And these 3 types of the political culture, we have it existing in the Republic of South Sudan. And it's deeply affecting the political participation of the young people, of even the general public in the political processes in the country. And when we talk of the political participation, the political participation also, it has like 3 types of the political participations. And there is something called conventional political participation. This conventional political participation, it happens once in a while. Like now, the process of a constitutional making process. This is a conventional political participation. It happens once in a while, like elections. It happens once in a while. And mostly in conventional political participation, this is whereby you see the citizens are participants. They decide to have that political culture, participant political culture, because they believe that in the constitutional making process, it has to be people-driven process. When the people-driven process, which means this is a participant kind of a political culture, whereby everyone feels that I am part and parcel of the constitutional making, and we need the government to do a civic engagement or civic education, so that the citizens in the city and outside the city and in the whole country, and even those in diaspora, will participate actively in the constitutional making process. So this is easily related with the participant political culture. Then we have unconventional political culture. This unconventional political culture, it happens mostly in a situation where we are in. This type of political culture, it has issues to do with boycotting. You know, sometimes there will be a proceeding that you don't believe in, and you have rights to boycott, and there is sometimes it will be a riot, a demonstration, or protest. This is called unconventional political participation. It don't happen annually, but it happens due to the situation where we are or where you are. You can decide either to participate or not, to boycott or to protest, and this is allowed, of course. And this normally happens between, it happens in the middle, like when the majority of the society knows their political rights, especially the Bill of Rights, and they will understand, is it applicable? Is it good for me to participate in the process or not? Mostly it is happening. Then the last one, which is called illegal political participation, of course, it is also happening. This illegal political participation, mostly the political forces, like you will be a ruling party today, and somebody from opposition will plan to do something like even meetings. There will be a sabotage of that meeting. There will be a vandalization of the processes. They don't allow other parties to engage deeply in the political process in the country. There is always the element of vandalizing the process or countering the process so that another party will not do anything political. It is only the powerful party or the ruling party will have rights to do whatever they think it is a must to be done. And indeed, when we need to actively participate in politics, we need to understand the political culture, the life, the type of the culture we have. And it is affected, of course, by the level of the illiteracy. Some people think the government is for other people. You cannot question the government. That's why sometimes some of the decisions taken by the individual in the government does not favor the majority of the population, because they know that we can put a law, we can put a taxation, we can put any kind of a thing on their citizens. They will not question it because they don't know their rights. Even the constitution is very clear under the Bill of Rights, which is chapter 2 of the Transitional Constitution of South Sudan 2011 is amended. Some people don't know their rights, and this affects the situation where we are in. So to cut it short, generally the political participation of the young people or of the youth towards politics, it has different elements. First, from the youth among themselves, they don't know their political rights because lack of education or civic education on the political culture that we're supposed to build in. It is only in Sudan, which I know there is a participant political culture, whereby you have seen what happened in Sudan. These are the young people who protested against the brutal regime of Umar al-Bashir, and they managed to oust Umar al-Bashir from power and try to create a new government. These are participant kind of a political culture, whereby everyone feels that the government is for us and we will be part and partial of the decisions to be taken by the government. So in conclusion, I may say that we need a lot in terms of understanding the politics in depth. So when we understand the politics in depth, we will also understand that we cannot do without government, and government cannot do without us. Government is living because of the people, and the people supposed to be proud of the government they have. So when the citizen fear the government, this is the question mark. And also when the government fears the citizen, that is democracy. That is a good governance. So in our situation, people fear the government more than the government fear the people. And we need to do a lot on that aspect.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. First of all, for teaching us all about the cultures of political participation that we have in South Sudan, for highlighting it. My eyes are opened. Thank you so much for also highlighting that sit-ins, boycotts, and all those are also forms of protests and forms of political participation that are guarded for by and warranted by the Constitution, but also highlighting how, as South Sudanese, we are honestly citizens that only engage in politics, that are conventional, that is expected of us, and we rarely find ourselves in other processes. I want to immediately take that question to Wani Michael, because Mr. Wani is a youth leader in the civil society space, which is tasked with sensitizing the masses on their rights, and standing up for their rights. Honorable Paulino is lamenting that the citizens, the youth, because we are the majority, do not know their rights, and that is affecting the face of politics of our country. And so I shoot you that question, but I also want to add, why are youth hardly involved in the decision-making process? Is some of what Honorable Paulino said valid, that youth do not know their rights and are not politically conscious? The floor is yours.
Uh, Thank you very much, Ayat. I think Paulino has mentioned most of the issues. I would date back during the time of the liberation. By the way, when the liberation started in 1983, most of the people who joined the liberation were young people. Even most of the current leaders, they went to the liberation when they were young. Some of them were even students from the university, and they fought, and of course, it led us into this independence. So the narrative that young people cannot participate. I remember during the peace talks, and we have been telling the leaders that, okay, if you say young people cannot participate in the nation building, in the political process in the country, why do you think young people can participate in the battlefield? Why do you think that we can hold the guns for you and we can fight for you to be in your political position? I've never heard of a politician who says, now we don't want young people to go to the battlefield to defend our front lines, to defend our positions. They always come to us and mobilize us. Say, young people go defend the country, go and defend our territories and all these things. So young people participation in political process is very, very important. And by the way, it's not only happening in South Sudan alone. In Africa, there's a youth movement. There's a uprising of young people saying no to dictatorship, saying no to the all elites deciding for us. That's why you see now in most of the parliaments in Africa, there are young people taking up positions in parliament, elective positions. There are young people even competing for the higher office. So and this has been a long journey. Ayag, you and I were in the peace talks. You remember when we were advocating for the inclusion of young people, and we were told young people want position in the government, and then the women want their 35%. So what about us now, the elderly people? Where are we gonna be? But let's think about this. The young people, we are 72% of the population. So literally, we are the South Sudan. So we ought to be on the table. We ought to be part of the governance of this country. Nobody should push any young person out. And I was so happy to see that in this government we have seen so many young people that are joining up. Unfortunately, we see most of them young men. We don't see young women taking up some of these political position, and that has been one of the huge challenges in South Sudan. When you talk about youth, always is perceived to be the male dominant space, but we need to see as many young people, and I'm talking about both young women and young men. And I think for us young men, we have a number of advantage compared to young women, where we can easily get into this political space, as opposed to the young women who get often intimidated, and because of how our society perceive about them, they are always getting a little bit of limitation. But I must say that over time now we have seen young people coming out openly and said, no, you cannot decide for this country without us. That's why you have seen young people coming up and said, we want to be in parliament, we want to be in the cabinet. We even, I remember, we were like fighting even to have a vice president who is a youth, because we said, if you have a woman who is a vice president, what about the youth? Why can you have a youth to be one of the vice president? So I want to urge the young people out there is that rights are not given. I've never seen in the world where they give you right. You have to go and ask for it. You have to demand for it. Our constitution is very clear. Chapter 2 of the constitution, Bill of Rights. There are freedoms that have been given to the people, and nobody takes away those freedoms. Those freedoms belong to us. And our constitution is very clear that it is the people of this country to defend the constitution. And I want to emphasize on this, that the constitution does not belong to the government, does not belong to the presidency, does not belong to the minister. The constitution of the country belongs to the people of South Sudan. So it is upon the people to exercise their power to defend the constitution. And if the government is violating the constitution, the people of this country, including young people, they need to come up, rise up, and defend the constitution in a very peaceful manner. And that is your obligation that you ought to do. Like what Honorable Lukudu said, that is a political participation. Sovereignty belongs to the people, is vested on the people of South Sudan. So people of South Sudan ought to have that power to determine the destiny that they want. If you want peace in South Sudan, the people of this country have that power to say enough is enough to this fight. We want peace in our country, and we can do that. If we say we have bad governance in South Sudan, as young people, we have the power to tell our leaders that enough is enough. You have having bad governance in this country. That is why there's a corruption in this country. There's not even corruption, but it's looting of resources. By the way, last year in the National Dialogue report, I remember they said since 2005, the data that they got, we had been generating over $40 billion. $40 billion that has been coming in from the oil money. But when you look around in South Sudan, you cannot even equate $1 billion to any of this money. It's not equivalent. Where are the hospitals? Where are the schools? Where are the jobs for young people? Where is the peace? Where all these things are missing. And we are pumping oil. They are taxing us every time, and we have been paying tax to the government, but we don't get services. We don't get security back. So it is time that as young people, we address the real issues. And the real issues, if the issues of governance, we have been given powers. This country belongs to us. This country does not belong to the few elite. And as young people, we need to take it up. The Constitution protects you. The Constitution have given you the right to exercise that power in a very peaceful manner. And you have that. You have the right to protest. You have the right to demonstrate against the government. If you think that what the government is doing is not inconsistent with what you believe in, and that provide a platform for you to dialogue with the government. So protest does not mean that you are always against the government, but protest means you want to have a dialogue. You want your voices to be heard by the government, and government addresses these issues. So for me, the fundamental issue is that young people should take ownership of the country. The same way we did in 1983. The same way we had the Red Army. The young soldiers who fought for the independence of this country. I remember during the referendum time, young people were campaigning everywhere. We devoted ourselves to ensure that we have a country, South Sudan. We should not allow the few elites to destroy this country. We should not allow the few elites to destroy the country to the ground under our watch. We have a responsibility as young people, our generation, to put this mess and put our country in order. Otherwise, we are destined that even our children are going to be facing the same challenge that we are facing. So my message is that young people, let's take ownership of the country. Let's say no to bad leadership. Let's say no to bad governance. We have to stand up and tell these leaders we want our country to be governed ABC like this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wani, for emphasizing on the Constitution giving the people sovereignty over the state and government. After all, it says we, the people. It does not say we, XYZ, or we, the government. It says we, the people, and the country does belong to the people, and youth are the people as well. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And also, thank you for highlighting that there are peaceful means of addressing grievances. There are peaceful, nonviolent means of finding space to dialogue with those in positions of political power, decision making, and places of influence, in order to peacefully and nonviolently reach the goals that the citizens, the youth particularly, are envisioning for these countries, such as addressing issues of bad governance and issues of insecurity and issues of mismanagement of public funds. I will take the same question to Advocate Reach. Just I know you have been following on Wani's thread, so I want a legal input on that. But I also want you to just quickly also address another issue, which is we have a lot of youth in prisons. We have a lot of youth in prisons, and most of them do not have legal representation. So what can the advocates such as you do for our youth who are languishing in prisons at the moment? So please just kindly address the legal aspect of what Wani was speaking about right now, and then answer the question that is addressed to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. To start with Wani's elaborative presentation, you know, our laws are very clear on what to do and what not to do. It's only that when the people of South Sudan want to implement the constitution and other laws that are enacted, they tend to find opposition from the government side, which is not the case anywhere else in the world. What is illegal, but they are supposed to be allowed to do the legal things. What I mean is that the youth that have started to show up against injustices about employment, I think it should not be discouraged, because this is the start of civil disobedience. And what it means by civil disobedience is that when the civilian population is not able to get what they want and what has been jotted down in the laws of the country by its own. On the other way, I want to say that these young men, they are not only from Upper Nile or Barghazal or Equatoria. It is starting as a movement all over the country. And that can tell us that government is not providing jobs, for example. And though it is a sole government duty to be able to provide jobs, but still, if the government does not provide, and then people have to go on a civil disobedience mission. And that civil disobedience mission is not only on the NGOs. The NGOs are the start, because your rights are not only with the government, they are with everybody that provides services. That includes the private sector and the government, as well as the NGOs. Having said that, our own conscience will be able to tell us if the youth have come up and they have started to question why they are not being given what they deserve with the NGOs, and then tomorrow we have a hope that they will also have a civil disobedience against the government that is not able
Advocate Rich, can you hear me? Okay, I feel the advocate's internet might be
to provide them. So we could see as to be under the shoes of everybody, including even the traditions that we worship so much. They put us down. For example, we have to be that we are not able to. This is, you can hear me. Okay, this is very much negative to the future of the Republic of South Sudan. You could also see that in the Constitution, clearly provided 46 that any citizen has duties, and those duties they include elaborative base duties. For example, if you go to Sabbatical 2A, it says that a citizen has a duty to defend the country. On Sabbatical 2B, it says promote peace and harmony. Sub-article C says that preserve and protect public funds and assets and legal and financial obligations. On the other hand, also, on sub-article 2D, it says clearly in clear terms that any South Sudanese and combat corruption and sabotage. Now, when a Somali and talks against corruption, South Sudan's government has prioritized that it is illegal and has prompted every person, not only young people, to be able to speak loudly and to be able to discover and oppose corruption. But it still is being made as if the one saying that corruption is not allowed is the one committing acts of such practices, and which in the end will get the young people to be still be able to go ahead. And the question of many economic encourages criminal activities. It encourages people to lose their own spirits and to lose their own conscience, because the least that you can get is to be able to find a meal. And when you are desperate, wanting to find a meal, you already lost your dignity as a human being. And you get so many young people, not only in prisons, the one in prisons are safe, the risk. How do we help them? I am part of the South Sudan Bar Association as Deputy Secretary for Information, or per se the Deputy Spokesperson of South Sudan Bar Association. We deliver as well the sole government responsibility as enshrined in the Constitution, that if a South Sudanese is not able to afford a lawyer, the government is supposed to provide a lawyer for him or for her. But that is not happening. So maybe NGOs as well, there are NGOs that have been established and they are delivering legal aid and pro bono services. Maybe Wani also is doing that in his organization. I do not know, but I know of the Advocates Without Borders, amongst others. Answering the question of what can the advocates do to help such youth? You know, as an advocate, we're supposed to have a public obligation towards people that do not have capacity or financial capacity to afford legal services. And that, even if not the Bar Association's policy, and then it is still the obligation of every advocate to be able to at least take up, even if once in a year, you take up like 2 cases, on free services, and provide such service to the people of the Republic of South Sudan.
Thank you so much, Advocate Rich Malwal, for highlighting first the plight of our fellow youth who are in the prisons. The fact that the desperate times are pushing some of the youth into criminal activity, and that there are legal ways to address it. Thank you also for highlighting that as young people, we have an obligation, and it is part of our civic duty to speak up on issues pertaining to this country. And that means that we have the right as citizens and as young people to speak to all issues. It is actually a patriotic act, and it is a civic duty to speak up on issues, that we are not happy with as young people. And thank you also for highlighting for emphasizing and continuing the thread that violence is never a solution, and all issues should be addressed in an amicable manner. Thank you for highlighting the unrest that has been happening all over the country. Youth have been very much disgruntled and have resorted to sometimes violent means. Um, and this is a call to all service providers, government, NGOs, and the private institution as well, that they need to look into these issues and address them in a way that the youth find amicable. Thank you so much for those, inputs. Now, first of all, thank you, viewers, for those who have been watching us, ladies and gentlemen. We're halfway through this very youthful panel. We are discussing the role of youth in peace building and obviously addressing some of the pillars of peace building. And now I will go to Mr. Patrick Godi. Patrick Godi, you're a youth leader, and just following on the same chain of thought. What plans do the youth have for South Sudan? What are some of the major initiatives that are being done to involve youth politically, economically? And what can be done to unify the voices of the youth, both in the diaspora and those back home in South Sudan? If there is a role at all that parents can do, how can parents also contribute to shaping the minds of young people? You're welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. I did not get much of the question when you were reading it out. There was a problem with the network. Can you please repeat it?
Absolutely, Patrick. Uh, my question is, it goes like this: you are by yourself a youth leader, so I was hoping that you could highlight some of the initiatives that youth are doing to ensure that there is youth political and economic participation. My second question to you is, um, what can be done to unify the voices of the youth in diaspora as well as youth in South Sudan? And if at all, what can parents do to also help in shaping the minds of the youth to contribute positively in South Sudan? Manasseh, I see you online, and you'll be right back. You will be the next person online after the question from Patrick Godi. It's good to see you. You're welcome, Mr. Patrick.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ayak. As a youth leader, of course, we have been engaged together with my colleagues in Adataban and other youth-led organizations in firstly advocating for a peaceful resolution of the conflict in the country. We believe that when there is peace and security, then the other aspects of youth development, like economic participation, like political participation, can be guaranteed smoothly. Therefore, across the country, since the peace agreement was signed in September 2018, we have been at the center of disseminating it across the country. And I can mention that at least I have been to 9 out of the 10 states in South Sudan, disseminating the content that is in the agreement. And one of it includes the National Youth Enterprise Fund, which is envisioned as a fund to bring more young people to economic development, but also to promote and encourage young people to engage in business. Dr. Ayak, this provision is not new. However, the peace agreement only reinforced it. When you look at the transitional constitution of the country as amended 2011, Article 201, it had clearly provided that there had to be a national youth enterprise fund that had to be established to facilitate the development of young people economically. However, it is regrettable that from 2011 up to date, the government did not take any initiative to ensure that it implemented this provision. It is only through the agreement that now it has come back to light. However, still we have seen that the government has not taken or prioritized its establishment. Therefore, this is one of the very core youth issues that if we're going to prevent young people from engaging in violent acts, that has to be implemented. Therefore, as young people already, we have had a number of discussions. We have tried to organize to see that we make a follow-up on this provision and that it is implemented as soon as possible. We also want to call out to the government that the issues of young people should never always be at the back of the queue of what has to be done. We have seen that it's always young people who come last after the government has decided on their priorities. But this shouldn't be the case. As you mentioned in your introduction, we're a very young population with more than 72%. If this 72% is being ignored, what do you envision will be the look of the country economically? The same issues which have been mentioned by Wane and Honorable and Advocate Rich about the young people turning to violence across the country is as a result of them having no opportunities. Therefore, as a youth leader, we are advocating and we're going on the ground in the grassroots, in the counties, in the states, organizing young people so that they can begin to demand for their rights, so that they can begin to see that they hold accountable their government. They see that there's transparency. As you can see in the few months that have passed, there was a report released by the Attorney General, which exposed the gross misappropriation of millions of dollars of funds that were meant for the oil-producing states and the communities. These funds include money that is meant to also facilitate youth activities, that is meant to deliver services, including education, healthcare. However, if you go on the ground, you go to the communities, you will not find any valuable service that can be attached to these huge sums of money, which is coming on a monthly basis. This money is not reaching the states. And if it's not reaching the state, it means the young people are not getting access to the services that they should have been accessing as provided for by the government. Therefore, we strongly call that the Youth Enterprise Fund has to be prioritized and it has to be implemented as soon as possible. But when it comes to participation in the political sphere, we endorse that the resolutions of the National Dialogue, which clearly call for quotas to be given to young people to participate in political spheres, to be implemented. And we call that this has to be legislated in the permanent constitution that is going to be made to guarantee that young people have a quota, but also they have the ability to participate in the other 80% or the other percentage that is left for the other people. And also we call for the political parties. We already know that the SPLM guarantees 20% youth representation. However, this is at face value. When you go to the implementation aspect of it, you find that it does not match what the party policy says. So we're calling for youth in the political parties to ensure, to follow up that there's implementation of these provisions within their political party so that it can reflect at the state and then at the national level. And for the political parties which currently do not have that policy, we also encourage that they need to adopt it. That is one of the ways of bringing youth representation in the politics in our country. And then when it comes to the issue of unifying voices of the diaspora and the youth in the country here, as a young person who has benefited from international engagements and regional engagements, we advocate, and I strongly call that there has to be forums that bring young people in our neighboring countries. We know that countries including Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Sudan host a very big or significant population of young people. We need these people to be engaged. I remember during the census, I participated in the country, but when I left for my education in Uganda, I was still able to come and I was still able to vote during the referendum while in Uganda. So if the government then could engage young people in the neighboring countries on important national issues like the referendum, why can it engage them? Why can it also find programs that engage young people in the neighboring countries, our young South Sudanese in the neighboring countries? Therefore, also the government need to come out with clear programs that bridges the gap between the youth who are in the country and those who are in the neighboring countries. Like this will harmonize, and we'll see that young people will begin working in a more coherent, and they'll be working in harmony. And those who return to the country, they will be contributing to the development, and also some of the ideas that they have and skills which they have gained in the country, they can be able to implement. And implementation cannot happen if there is no conducive environment. Therefore, we're calling that the government has to address the issue of insecurity. Up to date, despite the agreement, we're seeing sporadic violence in almost all corners of the country. Why? Why do we continue to see violence in the country despite a peace agreement? This is one of the issues which the government need to take very serious. It need to address the communal conflicts which are happening in parts of the country. It need to address the issues of conflicts between communities. Now there is a danger of conflict between cattle herders and farmers. The government is paying a deaf ear to this. These are triggers of conflict. We as young people are not ready to go to conflict, and therefore government need to address these underlying issues, and it need to see that young people are given a conducive environment to develop. When it comes to what roles parents can play in shaping the youth, I think it's important for young people, for parents to instill values in the young people. A family is the smallest unit, and what happens in the family is reflected at the state level. If we're having broken families, then we shouldn't be surprised to see a broken society. Therefore, government need to also ensure that the families have livelihoods. If parents do not have livelihoods, you cannot blame them for not sending kids to schools. Therefore, our parents also, we need to see that they're having access to quality jobs. We need to see that their livelihoods is not destroyed. We're seeing currently that even the few who are having access to economic way of life, that little is being frustrated. Within Juba, you look at the kind of taxes which are being levied upon the few people who are engaging in business. It's really frustrating. We're calling that there has to be a friendly business environment that facilitates entrepreneurship, that facilitates new ideas being implemented, and like this we can move forward. And this is partly to blame on the government side if it is not responding to the challenges which are existing in business. If we have these policies in place, if we have the government really saying they're working day and night for our good, these problems will not be continuing. Therefore, it is important that government is able to address them, and at the family level, parents will be able to provide for their families, and will not see these issues of Toronto on our streets, will not see the issue of vulnerable kids begging on our streets, and therefore we'll see that we're building good families that have values of love, caring for one another, standing in solidarity with those who are suffering, and we will begin to see the change that we aspire for at the country level. But it starts with the family. So it's important that parents also play the role. One last thing that I want to mention when it comes to bridging the gap between the youth in the diaspora and those in the country is creating platforms like the one we have right now. This is a very important platform that should also be extended to the young people. Together today with over 5 panelists from different countries, we're able to share our ideas. And if this can also be given to the young people, I believe their contributions will be harnessed and we'll see that it is reflected in the development of the country, which is actually what young people are aspiring for, the space to apply, their skills, their knowledge. Therefore, such forums are important and such platforms need to be extended to young people, let them freely express themselves so that they can contribute in the nation building narrative.
Thank you so much for highlighting. Insecurity seems to be a recurrent theme. It's insecurity. Without addressing insecurity, it seems nothing will move forward. There has to be a conducive environment for livelihood, and that means insecurity has to be addressed. But likewise, it has to, and that also means economic, the economy will thrive if insecurity is addressed. It means youth will be engaged in the economy. Thank you for highlighting the Enterprise Development Fund, the need for it to cascade from national level all the way to the boomer levels. And thank you also for highlighting youth political participation, the need for all political parties to have youth quotas, the need for us to take stock of the upcoming constitutional making process and ensure that youth have quotas that are reflected as bare minimums, which does not exclude them from participating outside their quotas. Mr. Manasseh, I see you on online, and so I'm going to shoot your questions right at you. You were very much involved in the peace process. Do you agree that youth should be involved in peace talks? Was there a benefit? Is there a benefit to youth being in peace negotiations? Do you see a role of youth in peace building? And what about post-conflict reconstruction of South Sudan? Do you see youth playing a role in that as well? You're welcome. Mr. Manas? Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ayak, and apologies once again for being on and off. Uh, just some technical error. And also, I want to thank the South Sudan Women Intellectual Forum for the opportunity uh, to be in this panel. To answer the question, to jump right into the question, yes, the youth, as all my previous participants.
My apologies for that. It seems Mr. Manas is experiencing some technical glitches, but let us not lose momentum in that discussion. So I will move on to Honorable Paulino. Is it true, every time when youth say we need political space, we need quota systems, we need to engage, we need the development fund, the reply is always, this youth, they're useless. It seems that youth have lost a sense of direction. So what is your take on that? Have youth lost a sense of direction? What are the challenges that are facing youth, especially those who are actively participating in politics as yourself? And what are your recommendations moving forward? So just before you answer, this next round of questions is going to, everybody is going to be given 5 minutes or less so that we're able now to engage with the questions that are coming up from the audience. Thank you very much. Honorable Paulino, I directed a question to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, the narrative or the saying of we need to replace it so that you don't need something which is already there. Example, your rights. You don't need to ask for your rights. You need to get your rights. You don't need to ask for political participation. You need to get in and participate. And the more we ask, you cannot ask for freedom. You get freedom because there is no freedom for free. Of course, you will go through difficulties, and you will be named some names which does not suit you. But as long as you are determined, you have to get what belongs to you. You don't need to ask what belongs to you. Because when you become beggar in your own rights, then you will be under somebody's shoes. And if you are under somebody's shoes, they will do you the way they want to do you. And for experience of being active in politics, since before the signing of the agreement and as a member of the defunct National Dialogue, I learned a lot that we as a young people, some people look at us as young people in politics, as people who are coming to, like we are, like they don't think that we are coming to coalesce with them or the 21st century solution we are bringing to the problems of currently we are facing in the country. They see us as we are coming to compete, and this is one of the issues and the challenges that we are facing in politics. When you see young people in politics, know that we are going through these challenges. They always see us as competing partners. They don't see us as partners in the development of the nation. And only few politicians who are elders can recognize that. Let us coalesce with these young people, because tomorrow or today they will continue to run the country. And if you look at the level of the technology advancement in the governments in the world, and the level of the technological advancement in the level of the government in Africa and in South Sudan in particular, you will realize that we need more young people. Now we are having a virtual kind of a talk show in which some people will find it difficult. And the world of today, especially when the pandemic strike the whole world, you can see even some cabinet meetings cannot be done because people cannot come together and discuss ideas. They always need to be in person. So if young people who have a knowledge of the technology, very many in the government, the process and the proceedings of the governments will continue, because we move on where we change according to the world of today. And the challenges that are happening all over the world, we are trying to look for a solution to it. And indeed, the political participation of young people in politics at the moment is extremely important. But it will help us if we look at ourselves as young people. And when you, today, if I'm from Barghazal and I start speaking only for Barghazalians, then people from Equatoria will see you differently, even if they are young people, even if you are saying Guinea something, Guinea words or Guinea concerns. Let us try to be more nationalistic, more nationals, if we can. Let us try to be more national than regional in solving the problems of the country, because the same problem happening in Africa, in Equatoria, happening in Barghazal, happening in Upper Nile, and young people are always and almost facing the same challenges that we are all facing: unemployment, insecurity, and many other aspects of life. And the most important thing for us to guarantee our rights is when we have a formidable institutions that is operational. Example, we have a paralyzed anti-corruption commission. A paralyzed anti-corruption commission which has no powers to prosecute, but they will investigate, they will not prosecute. And we don't have anti-corruption court. Do you think the cases of corruption will be arrested in this country? Of course, no. We don't have a constitutional court. Today, if there is a violation of the agreement, peace agreement, where we are implementing, where if there is violation of the constitution, where will you go? The court is politicized because the Chief Justice is appointed by the President. If the Chief Justice is appointed by the President, do you think the court is independent in the aspect of the legal proceedings? Of course, the Chief Justice will not be independent. Then other institutions that can protect the rights, most importantly, if you need to exercise the Bill of Rights in the Constitution, requires some institution to be functional and independent. That is one of the reasons the Bill of Rights in the Constitution is not being exercised by youth, because the institution that will protect you is paralyzed. You cannot exercise some of the rights enshrined in the agreement. And when you look at the security aspect, of course, currently there is issue of saying let us have one national army. Now we have soldiers belongs to the parties. The SAWA with their soldiers in cantonments and IO that side, and the government, all of them are soldiers. Who will protect who? Or who will protect the citizens? Is the SSPDF will be the right army to protect the citizens? Is the IO will be the right army to protect the citizen? Or the soldier or the forces from SAWA? So when we have a national army with the dignity that to protect the national integrity of the country, and we have a police that to protect the lives and the properties of the people, then you will have opportunity or privilege or chance to implement some of the Bill of Rights in the agreement and in the Constitution. The Constitution and the agreement, all of it, these two books has given us rights to fight things like corruption, even including a public servant. If today there is a case of a corruption against a particular public servant or a minister or somebody in the government, according to the agreement, this person will be barred from holding a public office because you are corrupt. But today, how many cases of corruption? Who is investigating it? Violation of the agreement. Who is investigating it? Even the RJMC is toothless here in Juba. They cannot do anything. There is violation of the agreement in their watch. They become toothless. Anti-corruption, toothless. Constitutional court, not there. Anti-corruption court, not there. National army, not there. Who do you think will come from somewhere? So the best opportunity for us as a young people is to engage seriously in the permanent constitutional making process. Even if we manage to get that, okay, we need to have a national, or we need to have a chief of let me say, the chief of a watchman. If this chief of watchmen is a youth, should be elected by youth. Any position belong to youth will be elected by youth, so that the person representing youth will be answerable to the youth, not answerable to the appointing authority. So whatever position belong to us, even if we ask that we need a presidential advisor on youth affairs, this person should not be appointed, should be elected by youth. So any position we want for youth will be elected by youth, so that the person will be answerable to the youth, not answerable to somebody different. And the biggest challenge we will encounter, of course, is how to input youth issues in the permanent constitutional making process. When we manage to secure that, we will have a strong parliament if all it is there. But if the parliament is also become toothless like so many institutions, then the future is worrisome for very many young people. But let us hope that we will have a strong parliament that can question the action of the executive, that can question when you are taking a public office, you swear that I will do my work without fear, without favor. But today, we do the opposite, because protecting of the positions, people fear to lose positions, and they do things contrary to what they swear into the office. So I think I will end up here so that I will give chance to other people.
Thank you so much, Honorable, for highlighting some of the challenges. Thank you for emphasizing the importance of elections and the the accountability element of an elected official or representative of people. You have also spoken about the need for independent arms of government, so that there is checks and balances. And also thank you for clearly stating that the youth of this country are not useless, but there needs to be fully functional and independent institutions to allow the youth fully exercise their rights as guarded for by the Constitution. Thank you very, very much for that summation. I'm going to now go to Wani Michael. I have seen that he has been, following keenly the conversation. I want to also, you have been one of the strong advocates of he for she. So I want to also speak a little bit also on. I want you to speak a little bit on the importance of including women and girls. Yes, youth are the majority of the population, but also amongst those youth, women are the majority. It's young women that are the majority. But we do not see that reflected actually, in youth spaces. We do not see that reflected. Whenever people say youth, the assumption is it is some young man. And women are expected, young women, youth like myself, are expected to be pushed to the women's space. I need to hear your take on that. Why is it important to have women and girls in this youth space? Thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you, Ayak. Before I answer your question, I feel I need to respond to some few things that were raised by my brother Paulino and also my brother Patrick Godi. Lokudu raised a very important point, and I think one of the things that made most of young people are not joining politics, especially joining government, is because you get appointed today and you get fired the next day. So
All right. It seems Wani Michaels is experiencing some technical glitches. He was responding to the issue that Honorable Lokudu mentioned, that there is a lack of agency in youth. There is a sense that youth in political spaces are coming to compete instead of contributing as partners to development. So as soon as he logs back online, I will allow him the opportunity to continue his chain of thought. In the meantime, uh, I am going to pose one of the questions from the viewers by Emmanuel Waniguya. Patrick Godi, this question goes to you. Actually, it's a comment. He says, our youth should not sit back and think manna will fall from heaven or the current situation will solve itself. That youth must mobilize themselves, work collectively for their rights and positions in this country. Elijah Jacob also has made a similar summation. But before you answer that, I think I allow Wani Michael to make his summation, and then
yeah,
can get back to you, Patrick, if that's okay.
yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Ayak. I realized my bundles got done. I didn't know, so I had to just quickly subscribe to bundles. So I was saying that responding to Lokudu, you see, the problem why young people are not joining government and politics is because you get appointed today and you get fired the next day. So how do I join government? How do I join political positions that I'm not certain? And that is why some of us are saying we need to go for elections. If there is peace in the country, if there is security in the country. And the reason why the political leaders don't want us to have elections is because they know very well that they don't have any program for the people. So if we go for elections, many young people are going to run for different offices and they're going to compete with them. So for you to be able to have leaders who speak for the people, you need to have people who get their legitimacy from the people, not through agreements, not through political settlements, but people need to get their legitimacy from the people. People sending them to parliament, people sending them to different political offices. So the reason why many young people ought to remain out of government and out of political arena is because of how we play politics in South Sudan. You go to government with all your energy, with all your vigor to make changes. The next day, you get fired. My brother Polino Lokudu is a victim of this. He got indefinitely, suspended. So the politicians have made politics, entering into politics, a very difficult thing. And for me, I do not want to rely on an appointment because your life in politics lie with the appointing authority. So it is important that we need to advocate and ensure that we have stability in the country and we go for elections. Let's go and compete. Politics is about competition. I have never seen anywhere in the world where politics is not about healthy political competition. It's about competition. It's about presenting your policies. It's about convincing the people why you want people to give you the power. Why people should give you the mandate to really be their leader. So politics is not about appointment. Politics is not about giving people political offices. Healthy politics is about programs. It's about telling people what they really need. The other thing that I want to comment about is the Youth Enterprise Fund. At the moment, we have been working with the Ministry of Youth and Sports already that the bill been drafted. And validation is coming, I think, at the end of this month or early next month. We're going to have a validation of the Youth Enterprise Development Fund bill, which is on its way to cabinet and on its way to the parliament. Once parliament, of course, they have taken out of office, and then you are going to have a legislation to govern the youth fund. And then now it will be time for us to advocate for government to put money. I'm one of the people who doesn't want the idea of us saying international partners give us money. Our government has money. Our country is blessed with resources. The problem of South Sudan has never been money coming in. The problem of South Sudan has been how we manage the money that comes in. Because money has been coming in, but the problem is that money ends up in the hands of few individuals. So it is important that we advocate for the government to enact that bill as soon as possible, and also pass the youth policy that will guide government in terms of how they want to address the fundamental issues of the young people. You and I know very well that this government has never had any policy on young people. That means they have not prioritized young people. I have been engaged in budgets. You don't see them even thinking about investing in the young people. So you wonder, what programs is the government having on young people to address the key issues, the core issues that they are really faced with? Sorry, I lost you with the question. The first question. If you could repeat for me just in 1 minute.
1 minute, Wani. Why should women and girls also participate
Yeah.
in a space that they seem to be very much excluded from?
Yes, I get you. So this has been one of the huge challenge for young women, and I feel for them, by the way. And we need to really discuss this. And I think I will recommend that the Women Intellectual Forum. We need to have another forum where you bring us and also the young women. You need to have these discussions in a very in-depth way. I have heard of many experiences of young women, strong young women. They go to women's space, they are told, you are not a woman. You're not supposed to be here. They come to our space of the youth. We perceive it is a male-dominated space. And indeed, they have a concern in that, because when you look at the space of young people, always, you see most cases in the leadership of the National Youth Union, even us in the civil society, in most cases, any position that comes, we first take it up as a young man, and we bring them as our vice chairpersons, as our deputies. I don't think whether our young sisters are fit to be deputies. I think they're also fit to be in leadership as we do. So that has been a huge challenge, that the youth space has been perceived to be a male space, that they don't appreciate the involvement and participation of young women. And we always bring them to be our deputies. And I think they are not deputies. They are fit to be even ahead of us. And it is our responsibility as young men to ensure that we empower them. We give them the opportunity to be ahead of us, as always wanting them to be behind us. That is why during the peace talks, we had been advocating for 35% affirmative action for youth, and we had wanted 25% that has to be put in the agreement. That's out of the 35%, 25% is meant for young women. We never got the quota. And remember very well also, with the 35%, we have been raising this legitimate concern and legitimate question. Where is the quota for young women? And our concern during the peace talk was that you're giving women 35%. We have experience with 25%, where the older women took all the 25% and never left even 1% for the younger women. And we have been so concerned in the fact that 35% they need to put in the document, in the agreement, in the constitution, that from the 35%, 10 or 15% is meant for young women. We were told, the women said, we are going to discuss about it and we are going to agree on it. And I remember very well, the women met in Djibouti. I forgot the year. You might help me out. And I was told later, I don't know whether it's true, but I was told later in that meeting, the women agreed that they are going to give 15% out of 35% to the younger women. But when you look at the appointments that happen out of 35%, you can hardly spot young women out of it. Even in the national cabinet, you can hardly spot young women out of it. So it is important. And by the way, we shouldn't preempt that there are no strong young women. We should not preempt that there are not strong young women who can participate. By the way, Ayak, I attended a workshop, and I was meant that, and I think Lokudu he will correct me, but there is a young lady who is a leader of a political party in South Sudan. I forgot her name. A young lady, who is a leader of a political party. She's leading a political party in South Sudan. So for me, the question of young women and girls participating in political arena is very key and is very fundamental. That we shouldn't limit the youth space to us, the young men, because the definition of youth says is a youth is a young man and a young woman. It's not saying it's a young man. So the youth space is not only limited to young men. The women's space is not limited to only the older women and the elderly women. It's also a space for young women. That's why I always say our young women or our girls has an opportunity to be in our space, also has an opportunity to be in the women. And I want to send this message very clear to the elderly women. In Africa, we say even the best dancers at the end of the day has to leave the stage. We want to see as many Rebecca Nyandeng sitting in the presidency, young women below 35 years of age sitting there. We want to see as many young women sitting in the cabinet. Your legacy will reign in this country if we hear young women coming out and say, I became a minister, I became a member of parliament because I was supported by these elderly women. But these elderly women, since 2005, we have known some of them changing from one ministry to the other. If they remove the people who shout very loudly, 35%, 35%, they remain in government for centuries now, and they
Thank
don't
you.
want to give the space. Yeah, so that
Thank
is
you
really
very
very,
much.
very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wani Michael, for highlighting that issue. I think another counter argument would be the women in government still do not make 35%, even if they're being taken from one uh, place to another. Why shouldn't some of the men step down to allow women have that space? In to have political space. This argument is an ongoing discussion. I will.
Yeah, Ayak, if
I will.
just 1 minute, I
I
want to
will.
answer you. Ayak, I have a court case. I have a court case in the Supreme Court. I took the government to court about issue 35%. So 35% has never been met, and I have a court case in the Supreme Court, and I hope the Chief Justice will give me justice.
Thank you very much for taking that up. Thank you very much, Advocate Rich. I'll move back to you because you have been online. Patrick Godi, hanging on there. I know you don't want to lose. Please don't lose that chain of thought as we go to Advocate Rich. We have exactly 13 minutes to the end of this discussion. Please let's keep our comments precise and accurate so that we allow for each and everybody to have a last round of answers. Elijah Jacob here says that in summation, he has made a very long comment, but his summation is that youth are waiting for manna to fall from the sky. We are always in the habit of blaming government. I have failed to register entrepreneurial, innovative, and inventive reasoning, but rather transfer of blames to government. There is a sense that everything is being blamed on government, and youth are not creating space for jobs. They're not creating they're not jobs are not provided for but they're created by introduction of value propositions engineered by young educationists for purpose of curbing national demand, etc., etc. So he feels the youth are the ones that are letting the country down. There is no need to blame government if we know that government in some issues will not be able to deliver. What's your take on that?
Well, I want to say thank you for the question. Moreover, I would agree that youth are not doing enough. Even if you see the instance that people have fought for 21 years, it was done by youth. The people that you see all today were all below the age of 40 by the time they joined. Some of them joined as well as they were just kids, they were just children. So I wouldn't agree that youth are not doing anything with respect to creating employment, for a reason that we know so many potential young people. On my own interest, I have never sought, to work with anybody. I believe to even the guys on the panel have never really sought job with anybody. They created their own jobs, including you, Ayak. I believe you created your own job. Now, the question is, where is the role of the government? And we know some young bright men or bright women are doing a lot in the Republic of South Sudan. But one thing that we should blame the country is this. our constitution is very clear. It gives something called social contract to the government of the Republic of South Sudan. What is social contract in legal terms? That the security of the people of South Sudan is or should be catered for by the security apparatus or the government of South Sudan in particular. That is not happening. Youth are the one protecting their properties when it should have been the police. Youth are the one making sure that they provide jobs for themselves when 0 point is being provided by the government. Nobody's providing anybody with a job. And so youth that are struggling are doing enough. And if there is anything that the government should be blamed for, is the failure of our country, the Republic of South Sudan. How do we, now we're going to celebrate by 9th July, the 10th anniversary. Government has never created a job that they have advertised. Government is not very clear how is the economic going to be managed in the next few years when it is deteriorating. Youth will never plan in the shoes of the government, but youth will act as a pressure group. Youth will also be able to create jobs for their own sake. You can remember Carbino, the late Carbino. He created jobs for the youth. But then we all know how it ended. So what we also want to be secure. We want to feel safe. That's how we become very much innovative. You cannot be innovative when you are worried about unknown gunmen. It doesn't happen like that. Even the youth that are working right now, they are doing it cautiously, because you cannot innovate in a situation where you don't know if you're going to excel, somebody is going to hit you and kill you. So what we want is that government in one way or the other has the responsibility to make things right. In my individual capacity as a youth or any other person, what we do is at a personal level. We have our capacity to change our individual lives. But then what is needed is to understand that we make the majority of the population of South Sudan, and then we can act as the holders of the people's will in the Republic of South Sudan. What does it mean? That we go for elections. It means that the person you choose to lead you in the next few years holds your future. The person that is coming in, if that person is not good enough in planning the economics, in planning the social life, in planning whatsoever the case in the country, the defense of the country and the security, that person is going to jeopardize with all our endeavors. And that is what it means for the Republic of South Sudan. So do we have to say, for example, when my father fails and I'm still a kid, I want to grow, I want to go to school, my father fails to provide me with education, I don't eat meals, who do I blame? Do I blame myself as a kid that I cannot provide? The person that brought you and you still not yet having enough hands to be able to work for yourself is the person to blame. And that is the same case with the government. I'm not saying everything being done by the government is bad, but I want to point out clearly that government does not have a clear state of mind of where the Republic of South Sudan should be in the next 2 years, should be in the next 3 years, or even in the next one day. We do not know about that. We have a population of about 13 million in estimation. Our revenues that come into our country are more than that every month. If we want to give every South Sudanese $1,000, we can still do that. But yet we see that not even the civil servants are getting their money, and those are just tiny pennies. So the problem of the government is not that the government is branded bad, but we believe that the government is not doing enough for us to be able to see that we belong there, to see that somebody is working very hard and we should do our part. So we need the government to do their part, manage the economy, manage the security, and manage the other things. All the rest, South Sudan can be a better place.
Thank you very much, Advocate Reach, for bringing that up. Thank you very much for showing that the youth are doing what they can given the circumstances that they're in. The need for security as youth entrepreneur and as youth create and innovate is paramount. This has been a recurrent theme throughout, and honestly, it cannot be overemphasized. I'm going to now go to Patrick Godi. We have exactly 9 minutes. So I am going to ask one question for all of you. And that question was asked by Emmanuel Waniguya. It's very, very nice when people know the problems like we do, when people know the challenges that we're facing, like you have just mentioned right now. It also means that there is a projected way forward. There is a projected way forward. So I'm going to give each and every one of you 2 minutes as you give in your way forward, and as well as give your final comment on this youth in peace building discussion. So we'll start with Patrick Godi. You're welcome. Okay, Patrick Godi just went offline. So I'm going to give the opportunity to Honorable Paulino. You have 2 minutes, and when Patrick comes back, we will give him his time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The way forward is this. Youth need a union that can bring them together. And we already have South Sudan National Youth Union. Some of the problems, we will address it if the youth come together under the umbrella of the South Sudan National Youth Union. The internal differences within the union or within the youth, we can solve it in the union. Secondly, we need to project the views of the young people to appear in the permanent constitutional making process, whether they are socially, politically, economically, so that we will have a constitution that protects us. 3, young people should have a monthly forums that decide or that evaluate the performance of the government, whether it is a national government or a state government, so that we will know how the government is progressing in all aspects. And in one way or another, it will also be a key for accountability, transparency, and inclusivity. 3, of course, nothing violently will be in our favor. Young people should distance themselves from anything that resort to violence, because violence is not our game. The masters of the violence knows this is the way out for them. So let us not allow any kind of a situation that can drive us to violence. Violence should not be an option, because we know the type of the society we are living in and the type of the country that we want in. So let us be advocates of peace, and let us not keep quiet when the situation requires us to talk. And at the same time, let us not keep quiet when the things that are happening in the country requires our voices. So the unity of the young people under one umbrella, that will be the way forward.
Thank you very much, Patrick Godi. Way forward, and your final words in 2 minutes. Patrick Godi, just give us your final words and your proposed way forward in 2 minutes.
Dr. Ayag, before I proceed to answer your question, I would like to rebuke the commenter who implied young people are complaining and not doing enough. And I appreciate Advocate Rich for putting it clearly, the challenges that actually the young people are facing in the face of, them trying, to discover themselves, to fulfill their aspirations. When you look at our situation, clearly the young people have done what they can. It's already mentioned that young people have been frustrated in businesses. Young people cannot find employment. And who is to blame for all of this? We as citizens have ceded authority to the government, and in return, we expect services. We expect the government to create the environment for young people to fulfill their aspirations. So it will be totally wrong to say that young people are not doing enough and all they do or care about is blame the government, blame the government. That's not a fact. And I want to rebuke whoever brought that to our attention, that young people are doing what they can, but the circumstances under which they find themselves are overwhelming, and therefore the government need to act to address those challenges. Coming to your question, we boast of a young population, and our demographic dividend and the vast youthful potential we have should be harnessed for our collective good and progress to break the cycles of war, conflict, hunger, and inequalities, so that we become a prosperous and a stable country as our neighbors and others in the world. Therefore, for us to achieve this, I recommend that the implementation of the national dialogue resolutions that give young people 20% affirmative action to participate at all levels of government should be incorporated into the permanent constitution. And this should also apply at all levels, right from the top to the bottom. So that means at the national level, at the states, right to the local government. And also, we believe that it's important to actually begin developing our young people. For example, when it comes to assigning our foreign diplomats, there has to be at least a certain number of young people who constitute these postings to the foreign missions. Also, we know that South Sudan is not living in isolation from the rest of the world, and therefore it is a signatory to a number of regional, continental, and international treaties. Under these treaties, they have created continental and global bodies under which South Sudan is mandated to also send representatives. We advocate that the government should consider also giving opportunities to young people in these international and regional bodies for them to participate and to develop their skills and career.
Thank you very, very much, Patrick. Now, in 1 minute, Rich, I'm going to give you 1 minute and give Wani Michael his last 1 minute as we log off the forum. 1 minute, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think the 4 speakers have taken our 1 minute. We should really penalize them for that, but I accept the 1 minute. Moreover, my final words would sound that, when the national dialogue was started, it was politicized. I was part of the team that went to Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, and Sudan. They spoke in very clear terms, and there is something that they were saying, the South Sudan we want. And each of them would actually narrate what they want for the Republic of South Sudan to progress. One of the problems is that youth in the Republic of South Sudan, they allow themselves to be divided among those rotten politicians. And this is one of my last words that I should tell. When you allow yourself to follow your uncle because, this person you look up to and you think he will bring you up in politics, you are not making change in South Sudan. Perhaps you're falling in the same shoes of negativity, the same shoes of tribalism, nepotism, and corruption. And this is what we all should be able to denounce. On the other hand, I believe in the power of youth. With the fact that we are the majority in the Republic of South Sudan, this gives us a clear green light that if we want anything to happen in the Republic of South Sudan, it will happen. If we want a youth president, it will happen. With the exception that if we still continuing to be able to follow our own uncles, our own tribes, instead of seeing what can be best for us. We know around the world, young people like us are presidents, for God's sake. And you can see we're still being held back, contesting in youth politics. And our ages are, making laws in parliaments. They are ruling countries, and they are also making scientific discoveries. Where are we on the globe? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wani Michael, I'm giving you 2 minutes because Rich took his 2 minutes. Please, before we are off, let's keep it 2 minutes precise and accurate. Thank you very much, Rich.
Thank you, Ayak. So my last words are borrowing from what advocate said, Rich said that one, power belongs to the people. Power does not belong to the people in government. The power belongs to the people, and it's unfortunate that the over 12 million people in South Sudan have decided to hand over power to the few individuals elite. My message to them and to the young people is time we claim our power back so we're able to hold these leaders accountable. It is time we stand up for our country and defend our country from bad governance, from bad leadership, from the looters, and from any sorts of evil thing that are happening to this country. It's time where the South Sudanese have to unite together because, as other colleagues said, the issues are affecting all of us. It doesn't care whether you're from tribe A or tribe B, region A or B. These issues all affect us. Hunger is everywhere. Insecurity is everywhere. These issues are all affecting us, irrespective of our tribe. So it's time for us to unite and claim our country back because we have the power to claim back our country from the few elites who have held us hostage for all these years. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I have 1 minute, and I really am going to give it to Patrick Godi to complete his chain of thought. I felt he was saying something very, very important, and I don't want that on my conscience. Please, Patrick, you have your 1 minute.
Oh yeah, thank you. I'll just jump right into what I wanted to conclude. And then importantly, that I want to also bring to the attention of my fellow young people is that during this important permanent constitution making process, barriers to youth participation must be removed, including constitutional amendments on the age for running for political offices. The age limit applying for governorship should be removed. The age limit applying for running for presidency should be removed. This will allow us young people, and many of our colleagues are actually interested in participating in politics. But this issue of age is meant, to impede us from participating in that area. Therefore, I think for us to progress, all the issues that have been raised in this forum, young people need to take it upon themselves, holding the government accountable. What we're doing is holding the government accountable. We're not complaining. We're saying this is the responsibilities that the citizens have handed to the government, and therefore we expect them, to also reciprocate by providing us the relevant services that we expect from them. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure joining my colleagues here, and also thank you, Ayak, and the South Sudan Intellectual Women's Forum for giving us this platform. It's been a fruitful discussion. I look forward to engaging more with you guys in the near future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for all our viewers who have been following. I'm sure today has given us a sense that South Sudan is in very good hands. It is good to be in a panel with Honorable Paulino Lokudu, Advocate Reach, Mr. Wani Michael, and Mr. Patrick Godi. And together we were discussing the role of youth in peace building. We have discussed many, many pillars, but a recurrent theme has been the insecurity needs to be addressed. There needs to be independent, functional institutions that safeguards the rights of youth to participate across all divides, political, social, economic. Thank you so much for speaking to the constitution-making process. There is a need for us to be active citizens, to participate actively in the makings of our country as we go into this next political phase of our country. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been good moderating this session. I am Dr. Ayak Choldeng Alak, and hopefully we'll see you in the next round of sessions. Thank you very much from the South Women's Intellectual Forum. It's goodbye from us all.
Thank you very much.